David Swartzmith, a channel where we take a hermeneutical approach to ciphering the scripture in context within a historical environment, purposing to understand the author's intention and communication in said text to an Israeli audience, that its truths may be studied and understood in its purest form. All right, tonight I'm doing a book review on the Aramaic-English Interlinear New Testament. Can you see it? Let's see. Okay. Aramaic-English Interlinear New Testament with abundant documentation of the Aramaic Peshitta text as the original by Dr. Reverend David Bauscher. Okay. All right. Let's get started. All right. Now, I wanted to get into some personal interest in this subject, so you know, I'm not just some Joe Smuckatelli interested in a fad. All right. Aramaic has been a subject of interest of mine ever since I've learned that Aramaic was the language of the New Testament back in 1997. And that word studies have been an important part of my study since about that long. And I've been able to weed through translators' agenda and theological bias, contorting the scripture to force it to say what they want it to make it say, so that they can mold it to their agreed upon agenda. And I've always felt that the New Testament agreed more with the theology of the Old Testament, not departed from it, like the Greek New Testament is guilty of doing. Okay, and I intuitively knew that if it was allowed to stay in its original integrity, the New Testament would expound on true Abrahamic Semitic teaching of the Old Testament and not conform to some new Greek pagan-based doctrine that suits a more Euro-Christian Gentile-based teaching. And I've always wanted to stay as true as the words recorded by the Messiah as possible. So that's where I come from as far as being a fan of the Peshitta in the Aramaic New Testament. I know that it's authentic. I've done the research. And this book here, I find it a great addition to the library and a fantastic scholarly tool, bar none. Okay. So having a look at the book jacket, like I said, the title of the book is the Aramaic-English Interlinear New Testament. And the subtitle is with abundant documentation of the Aramaic Peshitta text as the original. All right, so on the front here, you'll see a picture of the author explains it as a scene from Northern Ireland, and on the back here is I think a scene from a similar location. All right. And what I'm going to, and so this is a jacket. And inside the jacket, you see some notes here about the purpose of the book and about the usage of Aramaic. And then you see on the back here some information about the author. All right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read one paragraph. Read the first paragraph or the first side of the inside jacket. All right. This is a translation of the Aramaic New Testament. Aramaic was the language of Jesus and his countrymen of the first century Israel. In an English prose translation of the Peshitta New Testament. This translation is derived from the author's Aramaic-English Interlinear New Testament. Aramaic was used in Mel Gibson's film, The Passion of the Christ, to make the film as realistic and accurate as possible. This New Testament will surprise and thrill the reader with its power and inspiration, coming from the words of Yeshua, Jesus in ancient Aramaic, as he originally spoke them, in a literal and readable English rendering, abundant documentation of the Aramaic Peshitta as the original New Testament is included. Everything he just said, absolutely true. All right, so let's go to the back. We'll read a paragraph from the back. Pastor Glenn David Bauscher is a former high school teacher with a proficiency in Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic, and has been pastoring, preaching, and teaching the Bible since 1976 and several churches in the USA. He and his wife and 12 children, all of whom they have homeschooled, with one former ADA lawyer, now a defense attorney, another finishing second year of medical school, two sophomores at NYS University, and one former seaman of the United States Navy, having served aboard the USS Ronald Reagan, maiden voyage and world tour, and also aboard the USS Roosevelt. All right, let me just read a snippet on the back copy of the jacket that it will explain the title. The photo on the front and back covers, as you can see here, the front and back covers were taken by the author in Northern Ireland, May's homeland, I guess May is his wife, where we visited July 2007. The back photo is of Port Stewart from the front window of the 3-story flat owned by her cousin, Rosie Fulton, MD, and her husband, Glenn, where we stayed half of our 16-day visit. Okay. So anyway, I'm not a big fan of Bibles with jackets, but I guess that's an added bonus for readers who do like their Bibles be covered in jackets. As a matter of fact, since I've given the jackets due attention, I'll take it off and I'll show you what it looks like without the jacket. It's just maybe, I don't know if I could say navy blue. I can't say navy blue with honesty, but it's navy blue and it's plain on the front and on the back. But on the side, on the spine here, you'll see some text. It's just the title of the book, the Aramaic-English Interlinear. All right. Okay. So now I'm going to take you on a tour through the book. This is the front cover of the book. As you can see, it gives an example of, well, it's not really an example. This is actually the literal form of the Aramaic inside. It's more of a Hebraic Aramaic, whereas the squared letters of the Hebrew are used to render the Aramaic. The Peshitta Aramaic New Testament and Interlinear translation. And so the Peshitta Interlinear translation with notes and commentary by Reverend Dr. David Bauscher. That's a picture of it right there of the front of the title page. All right, next. Let's see what we have here. And then we have, of course, the logistics right here, ISB number and all that sort of thing. Then we have the table of contents, where it lists the names of the books of the Bible and what page you can find them on. Okay. And he gives a thanks to Paul Yonan and different sources which he cited for the compilation of this book. Okay. Next is the introduction. The introduction, it details historical background of Hebrew versus Greek in first century Palestine. Okay. This is what the introductory look like. Okay. And then what he does, he addresses about 3 different arguments. The Hebrew versus the Greek in first century Palestine. And you can tell he's arguing that first century Palestine didn't speak Greek as a comfortable language. And he cites some quotes from Josephus and how he confirms that it was not the language of the Jews in the first century, and how he learned Greek with difficulty and wasn't able to properly speak it, pronounce it, or write it. Okay? And then he skips over to how the Aramaic Peshitta was submitted for Bible codes, and Bible codes were utilized on the Peshitta, and how there were actual codes that were derived from it being run through a program versus the Greek itself, where no Bible codes are found. And he explains the findings of said Bible codes. All right. So that's your introduction. Introduction is only about, maybe, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. 5 pages long. Okay. Then we get into the background. That's the title of this section, the background. Now the background, it goes into talking about how the Holy Apostolic Church, or Holy Apostolic Catholic Assyrian Church of the East, and gives you background about that organization and how it kind of spearheaded the dissemination of the Peshitta as early as the first century. All right. Let's go into the pages. The pages are, I would say, either it's 80. I'm not really sure about this. I'm not an expert as far as when it comes to grading a book on this level, but I'll mention it just to let you know what you're in for. It's about 80-pound weight, if not a little bit thicker than 80-pound weight paper. I'm not going to say it has texture to it, but it's definitely corpuscle friendly to where you can turn the pages without problem. Now, those are the pages I've written on, so they of course, they're easy to separate. But these are the back pages I haven't written on. I haven't quite gotten through the bulk of this book. I've only gotten to about maybe Matthew. Yeah, it's on Matthew 15. But it's easy. It's not like the onion paper that most other Bibles are printed on, that you will have to be gentle with the pages and delicate for fear of tearing them. Okay, and I would call the page an off-white color, I guess you could say. There will be an off-white color, and I would say it's about The opacity is about 90%. Let me try to give you an example of the opacity. What I mean by opacity is the ability to reflect what's being written on a page. Some Bibles, you write on the pages, you color on the pages, you highlight on the pages. It will show right through on the other side. Whereas this book, you don't have to worry about that because you can highlight, color one side of the page. It will not show through to the other side. Let me give you an example. Because see, I've used color ink right here and on the other side of this, and you can't see through it. The color, that is. But when it comes to the black ink I use on the margins, you can see that with some difficulty from one side to the other. But you know, that's a lot better than I can say for a lot of Bibles. So I'm willing to live with that. All right. Moving right along. I'll give you some examples of the text. All right, let me start here. As you can see, it's very small text. I would say it's about, maybe the font size would be about 6 point. 6 point. It's very small. So I would say you have to use a citing tool, like a magnifying glass or something like that. If you have difficulty reading the pages with the naked eye, or with glasses, you know. For me, I have to. I mean, I can see the page from right here, but if I want to read it up close, I have to take my glasses off because I think I'm nearsighted, and I can see stuff close up, and I can't see it far away. So I think that's nearsighted. And so I can see it up close, no problem. But I have to have it about this far from my face to read it. Okay. All right. And let's look at the title of the book chapters. Go here. The title of the book chapters. Now, a lot of your Bibles will have the name of the book you're in up there in a corner or something like that. He has it on is that left? Yeah, that's left side here. The Holy Gospel Preaching of Mark. See it right there? He has it right there for you in English. And he has it over here in Aramaic. The exact same thing. The exact same thing. So if you're versed in Aramaic, you could repeat the same thing that's over here in English, but over here would be Aramaic, of course. All right. And realistically, to be honest with you, it's going to take some getting used to read it smoothly, because this book is not a Bible that you'll be used to, so to speak. You have to read it from right to left. Even in English, is read from right to left. And because of the broken English, it's going to take a little extra comprehension strength. And your comprehension could suffer as a result. So I know when I'm reading this book, it takes me a little longer to read it for that reason, but I'm okay with that. I love my Bible that way. I love it as neutral as possible, as literal as possible. Now, you can't get any more literal of a translation than this without translators' help or aid in fudging the let's say the verse or the text to make it agree to English syntax. Now, for some people that might be a problem, but for a true scholar, they will love that about this book, and I absolutely love that about this book. That's why I prefer my Bibles like this. Okay, and it would help to have understanding of Hebrew and or Aramaic, so that if you want to do word studies, you can learn a bit of Aramaic by ciphering the word and using an online lexicon to understand the text. Okay, so now it's time that I show you Okay, here it is. All right, I'll show you this. This is what the text looks like. If you see it there, you'll see that it starts with an Aramaic word, then beside that, an English word, the actual word that Aramaic is translated into, okay? And then beside that, an Aramaic word, then a word, the English word that word is translated into. And that's how you're going to have to adjust yourself to reading this book. And what I'll do is I'll give you an example of how this reads. But first, I'd like to mention that it doesn't have any diacritic marks. So when you read the Aramaic, you kind of sort of have to guess as to how it's pronounced if you know how to cipher the letters, okay? And there are no lexiconal numbering system above the words themselves to help you find their coordinates in a lexicon. That's why, it's going to take some extra knowledge of Aramaic or Hebrew to know what that word is, to look it up in the lexicon itself. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a link in the description where you can look up these words, where you can learn what word it may be. Okay, let's start here. I'll go here. This is gonna be Matthew chapter 25, verse 9. Okay. Answered those the wise, and they were saying, why not? There is enough for us and for you. But go to those who sell and buy for yourself. All right, that's not that bad. That's not that bad. But there's somewhere that English is really broken up. It's really it may be a struggle for you to try to make sense of it. But like I say, if you have like a translation, maybe your trusty translation nearby, you can read it in this. If you have a time trying to understand it, then at the very least what you could do is take another translation and read it in a more agreeable to English translation to understand what was just said. But I wouldn't do that too much because some of the ways these words are translated, it really defies what you see in your present New Testament. Okay? Let me do another one. Let's do this one. See how bad it might be to you. This but know that if known had the owner of the house in what watch would come the robber, been awake, he would have not allowed, he would have to be broken into his house. See what I'm saying? See, now in Aramaic, that makes perfect sense to an Aramaic speaker. But Aramaic is not spoken exactly as English. And that's what you get when you deal with a foreign language. All right, let me put my glasses back on so I can continue. All right. And I'm gonna tell you something. I really like the authenticity of the broken English. It's just something about it that adds character to the book for me. Okay. Now, the whole New Testament continues that way, but what he does do is include a plethora of notes. There's tremendous amount of notes. Let me show you how thick this book is. See how thick that is? This book is the size of many of you guys' Bible, Old and New Testament included. This is just New Testament. And he has it in a very small print. So it makes sense that the text one is that small because he jam-packs this book with a lot of information, a lot of notes, a lot of commentary. Okay, yep, like right here. He gives you examples of the Ashuri text. See that? I hope you guys can see that there on the page. And he goes into many different scripts of the Aramaic to drive his point home, to prove his point. to show you where the Greek slipped up and made mistakes, and how it became to be as error-prone as it is. But the notes are invaluable, okay? Like I said, I haven't read the entire book. I've only read to maybe Matthew 15, all right? And but from what I've read so far, what he does with the notes he offers you is he explains scribal errors, explain manuscript mistakes, and he also explains how the characters have the ability to be misread by a non-native speaker. And basically he's building a case for how the Greek was translated from the Aramaic and then the English from the Greek. Okay. So he shows the three levels of involvement that led to the present day errors of the New Testament. Okay. He also talks about how the smudges in the manuscript hinder proper rendering of the translation. He takes the time to explain certain word meanings and choices in the translation, why certain words were translated the way they were, and it goes to show this word was translated into this word when it really should have been translated into that word, and how these two words share the same, they share the same rendering in Aramaic, but they have two different definitions. I mean, he goes all into that. And if you are a serious student of the scripture, you will find that invaluable as well. All right. And the thing I like about it is he shares his insight into his logic, and he also shares the insight of the logic of the actual author of the book. Okay. Now we move right along to the appendix in the back. Let's see. The appendix is, okay, there we go. The appendix gives examples of what the Aramaic text and how it may have appeared in the actual manuscripts or the writings, like right here. And what he does is he gives you an example of a 1905 Syriac Peshitta New Testament. And when I say an example, it's just a snapshot of the page and how it looks. Okay? He explains again scribal errors, how certain letters look alike. And he gives you examples of Peshitta scripts, and basically explains how the Greek and manuscript errors came down to us. Right. So this is another page of the appendix. It's only 5 pages long. And I'm going to tell you right now, with the notes and the appendix, that was worth the purchase of the book alone. Okay. Moving right along. The last section of the book would be the biology. Oh, not the biology, but the biography. Let me show you that real quick. All right, here it is right here. It's very small. Very small. And basically what the biography is the technological tools and resources the author used to complete this volume. Okay? Let me give you a glimpse of what I mean. Okay? How about that? In writing this interlinear, I used and consulted MS Word, Dragon Naturally Speaking 9.0 software, Adobe Acrobat 5.0, Qt PDF, etc., etc. All right. So I don't know too many authors that will do that, that will tell you what software they use to compile this book, but he's being totally candid here. Yeah. He even tells you the manuscripts that he consulted. And I won't give that away. I'll let you purchase the book for yourself and see for yourself. All right, so that's it in a nutshell. Okay, and now I'm just going to go over the pros and the cons of the book, some of which I shared with you already, but I'm just going to summarize. All right, so I was ecstatic to finally have a copy or a hard copy of the book when I could touch and feel and smell and write on and carry with me, and not have to worry about if my battery's going to, how much battery power I got left on my phone before I decide if I want to start reading it or not. So for years, I've had to rely on PDF copies or digital copies of the Interlinear Aramaic. There's some online, but like I said, for me, I'd rather have a hard copy of it. I had to rely on a George Lamb's translation that was sans interlinear, and which I couldn't trust. And it had very little notes. I couldn't trust it because when I read the George Lamb's, I heard some of the criticisms about it. And one of the criticisms I kept running into, and I couldn't help but agree, is how closely it mimicked the King James. How much it forced itself to agree with King James, as if the audience at that time wasn't ready to embrace an Aramaic New Testament. Now I was ready. I was all for it. I already dived into it both feet. But I guess George Lamb's are kind of backed up and shied away from it, which I wish he wouldn't have. Now that's what I can say about this book. It does not shy away from the identity and authenticity of the Aramaic New Testament or the Peshitta. And I applaud it for that. All right. Let's talk about the second pro. My desire to have interlinear copies of both the Old Testament in Greek English, Septuagint, and now I got the New Testament interlinear Aramaic English. And so my set is complete. Let me explain that a little bit. I wanted the Old Testament Septuagint because it's the oldest Bible we have to date, okay? Even older than the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I know it's in Greek. I don't have a problem with that, right? And so now I knew the New Testament was not originally written in Greek. It was originally written in Aramaic. So now I have something to consult when studying the New Testament. And this way, my doctrine in the New Testament writings will be more accurate than just relying on the Greek. Okay? Let's see here. And as a result of that, I shun away and I shun the Old and New Testament in Hebrew, and I wanted a more authentic rendering of the Aramaic due to my many years of research on the topic. And this book gives you much of the critical, researchable evidence as to why that happened in the first place. I know that many people are not content with the Greek, and so what they do instead is they purchase a Hebrew New Testament. But that's like double jeopardy to me because it wasn't originally written in Greek. And if that's not good, if that's not bad enough, the Hebrew is a translation of the Greek. So it doesn't get back to the original, or it doesn't get back to the authentic by trying to correct that problem in the first place. What it does is create two more problems. All right. So this is what I resorted to, and as a way to cure the situation you find yourself into. All right. So what are my cons about the book? Okay. So first of all, the print size. Like I said, I would rather it be a larger print size, but I understand why, and that's not a knock on the author at all. I understand why. I wouldn't have had a problem with if this book was like twice the size, I still would have purchased it. But being twice that size would have meant more paper, more ink, so it would have been more expensive. I get that. And I'm not gonna gripe about that. You know what I'm saying? Most of these cons are just personal preferences, and then not something for you to adopt for yourself. They're just issues of mine that I either like a book for or tend to have an issue with a book about. And they're really not deal breakers for me, okay? I don't really care for the Aramaic script that's used. It's more like the block letter Hebrew type of Aramaic. What I really wanted, since I'm learning Aramaic now, I've since abandoned Hebrew and adopted Aramaic as a language of study. I really wanted the Estrangular text. I'm really fond of that text, you know. And I was hoping that the book would be in Estrangular to assist me in learning and adopting a familiarity with the text. But however, since I am more familiar with the Hebrew text, it's no problem to switch over to this book and read it, because my literacy level in Hebrew is far outweighs Aramaic in the first place. But the fact that this is in Hebrew, but Hebrew script, but the words are Aramaic, best of both worlds, really. You know, so it's really not a gripe, but it's just, you know, something I wish I would have had, but I don't have. And I have an issue with, I take issue with the typesetting style. It may not be an issue for me, but it is, it may not be an issue for you, but it is for me because I spent 26 years as a typesetter. And so when I see a text like this, I'm like, man, I wish I would have had the draft of this book so I can make it look handsome, you know, make it more like a scholarly tome, you know. And I would prefer that there was some commitment, because if you could see, the text is center aligned. It's aligned center. Let me show you. Okay. Here's the page. It's aligned in the center there. See that? And see, I want the author to commit, man, either left or right align. Now, left align if you're reading from left to right. Okay. Now, align to the right if you're reading from right to left, as in Semitic books do. You know, the Hebrew Bible starts in the back of the book. So it's like if you were a left-handed writer and you write like this, it starts in the back of the book, and the front is actually the back. The back is actually the front is actually the back, and you read it from right to left, like that. Now I think they would have helped a bit with a small percentage with the readability of this book. Like I say, it's just my own personal gripe. There's nothing to discourage or deter you from purchasing this book, because it's a gold mine of information. All right. I don't like Bibles that come with a book jacket. I mean, as you saw, I just took it off and put it to the side. You know, so it's no big deal. I just don't like it. I don't like that. You know? But it's okay that it came that way. It's your choice to either leave it or take it off. And last but not least, some of the images, because there are images in this book. I'll show you one. If I can find it quickly. Yeah, right here. Here is an example of low-res image in the front. And then I just had one here it is, in the back. Low-res. This is not too bad. See that? See that there? I hope you guys see that. I don't know if you can or not. I can't see the camera, what the camera is showing right now, so I hope you can see that. I'm trying to show the whole entire page. Give you a glimpse. Okay. So like I said, none of these gripes of mine or cons of mine are deal breakers or reasons not to buy the book, is definitely worth the purchase. Now, speaking of the purchase of this book, I bought this book for like $50.82. Well, let me say this. The book itself costs $50.82. So thank you, Dr. David. I'm sorry. His name is, I keep calling him Doctor. His name is not Doctor. It's Reverend David Bauscher. Thank you for your dedication and the years of life that you spent putting this book together. It will be greatly used in my library. And I would encourage you to go ahead and purchase this book as well. It'll be a great addition to yours. And who knows, maybe it's a tool that one day we can study together. I know I'll be looking forward to that. All right. So hopefully I've done due justice to the man, even though I've only read about this much into the book. But in the description below, I'll give you all the information. I'll give you how to find the book. I'll give you the link to the book. Like I said, I'll give you the link to some of the resources I use to help me study the book. I'll give you the dimensions of the book. So absolutely consult the description below to further your acquisition of the book, so to speak. And that about do it for me. I'm done. All right. Happy reading. Good luck, guys. Y'all take care.